can remember where I was watching Ed Sullivan, and that really changed a lot of things for a lot of people overnight watching that show. I mean, 4 lads from Liverpool could just make such a huge difference in so many facets of life. We're talking about, of course, music, but we're talking literature, we're talking fashion, we're talking art, we're talking popular culture worldwide. And from that moment on, so many young kids wanted to be just like the Fab Four. And if they couldn't be like the Fab Four, then these other groups they could latch on to. They could learn dance steps and do rhythm and blues while they were singing. They could take the folk music, the protest music, and they could put electric guitars to it and make political statements. And this became the new music of the 60s. And Trenton was at the center of that. Trenton had its finger on the pulse. We had so many garage and basement bands at that time, so many that were in groups that spawned bigger groups and became part of the national and international scene. And I'm going to give you just a few of them, and trust me, Professor Pearson, I could go on for hours with this stuff. Here's a few of the groups. They probably mean nothing to you, but if you really want to get your investigative skills honed, to dig into some journalistic adventures, look into these folks that were in these groups at the time. Because I can tell you honestly, their records today are highly collectible. You can go on eBay and you can see some of these costing hundreds and thousands of dollars. So they're worth knowing. People like Galaxy's Four, Jacob's Creek, The Natural Facts, The Young Monkey Men, Hoochie Cooch, St. Anthony's Fire, Satan and the Angels. Weird names, perhaps, maybe not any weirder than they are now, but they've come a long way, and they bred other groups. So let's break it down and get into a few of these. The first one I'm going to talk about, and you may or may not have heard, is Maureen Muehlheisen. Maureen Muehlheisen was the lead guitar player for Jim Croce. Bad Bad Leroy Brown, you know that song, Time in a Bottle? Priceless stuff. Maureen Muehlheisen, Trenton boy. Had his own record, here it is, priceless. At the time, $4.99. Now, a couple $100, called Gingerbread. I'll pass that around, but since it's from my private collection, I'll ask that you be very careful with it. You will not find that in any of the others I present to you, unfortunately, in the Trentoniana room or in the Trentoniana collection, unless, when I die, I bequeath it to them, which is a possibility. Another group. This is a big group. They started off as the Trees. They ended up morphing into a group called Jacob's Creek. Jacob's Creek, does anybody know that name? It's a street, right? It's also a creek. Jacob's Creek is the dividing line between Hopewell and Ewing Township. It also happens to be the point where after Washington crossed the Delaware, he had to cross Jacob's Creek at about 2 or 3 in the morning in pitch darkness in a blinding blizzard to get to the Battle of Trenton. So there's historic significance in Jacob's Creek. And out of Jacob's Creek came 3 musicians of note from Trenton. The first one is Bruce Foster. His name was actually Bruce Stephen Foster. Name Stephen Foster mean anything to you folks? Stephen Foster, think Civil War era. Oh, Susanna. Bruce Stephen Foster, is a direct descendant of Stephen Foster. Oh, Susanna, oh, don't you cry for me. I come from Alabama with a banjo on my knee. Cut that out. Okay, so that's Bruce Foster. He went on, he's now living in Monmouth County, but he also was such a gifted musician that he ended up in Beatlemania off-Broadway on the traveling show. Then there's these guys. And this is a rather risque photograph from the 1970s. This is an album called Brother. This is Lonnie and Derek Van Eaton. They lived on North Hermitage Avenue in Trenton, New Jersey. And not only was this risque at the time, but this is one of the first groups and albums signed by Apple Records, the Beatles' own record label. Yes, they recorded for Apple, they worked with the Beatles. After that, they worked with Harrison, Starr, Nielsen, Simon and Garfunkel, Carly Simon, the list goes on. The Van Eaton brothers. They no longer live in Trenton. I believe one lives in LA, is involved with movie business. The other one is in Utah.